The question we have today is this. How do you find a balance between offering what you're good at, enjoy, and have experience in, while also staying flexible and open to learning new skills? Amy, as is our tradition, I'm going to throw the question to you to kick us off.
Well, this is an interesting one. Finding a balance between offering what you're good at, enjoy, and have experience in. So right there, that's just very juicy because that's what you need to be doing, right? And you need to be doing offering what you're good at and enjoy. Because I think a lot of times people think that they have to offer like what the market demands or what somebody else is doing. So I think that's a very good jumping off point, while staying flexible and open to learning new skills. So I'm just going to say I'm going to be careful about not getting on my soapbox, but you know what? I'm going to get on my soapbox. Here's
Yay.
here's and this is pretty much like kind of what I'm about and what my business is about. Absolutely, you need to learn new skills, but you need to be really deliberate about what those skills are and why you're learning them. And one of the things that I am preaching constantly under the sort of idea that you have to be really good at your core skill. You have to have a core skill, you have to be committed to it, you have to be committed to sharpening the saw and getting better at it, which, honestly, you do by working, right? I mean, it's not like I think once you're good at something, you don't need to be taking a million courses and constantly be learning new things. I think a lot of that development is in the practice. And you can get paid to practice because you can get better and better as you work with clients. So I think that's a given. The thing the hill I will die on and the thing I will stand for is the person with good core skills who doesn't have business skills will not eat as well as the mediocre craftsperson who's got those chops. I think that those are the new skills that people should learn once they feel competent in their core skill and their core craft, because it's really interesting. Someone that I'm coaching currently said to me recently, like somehow the light went on for them. Like they just realized that like they were kept trying to improve their skills and learn new things and add new stacks of things to what they knew and expand, in like they're in a tight box and they're trying to like, push it open a little more with these additional skills, but they weren't getting better clients and they weren't making more money and they weren't finding stability. And so my argument was like the skill that you need to learn is how to mold this into a business. So this is a very particular tangent and a very specific answer. But I had to say that because I feel really strongly about it. Now I'm going to throw it to you to probably like start answering the actual question.
No, but I think it's a great kicking off point. And I'm going to join you briefly on your wonderful soapbox and just say, I actually think the key differentiator, I think I'm about to drop a bomb here from your soapbox, but I feel like the key differentiator between those people in the online business world who seem to work it out and who seem to grow really quickly, and those who stay in a relatively stagnant spot is that they quickly stop investing in courses and programs that further their core skill, and they start investing in courses, programs, spaces, relationships, and coaching that develop the business skills that sit around that. Because they know, like you said, that you can get paid to practice and that you're going to learn so much more by actually working with real clients and doing the thing and stretching your skills and your capacity in real time. And the thing you're going to need help with is, how do I continue to sell that skill? How do I monetize it? How do I make sure that I have good boundaries around my work so I'm not burning out? How do I make sure I have the right support in my corner so that I can continue to do the things that I really want to focus on and still deliver excellent, X, Y, and Z to all these people as my business grows? How do I make sure I have the best support for all the mental chatter that's going through my head as I'm doing these things? So just to join you on your soapbox there, now to step back off. What I immediately thought of when I saw and read this question, how do you find a balance between offering what you're good at, enjoy, and have experience in while staying flexible and open to learning new skills, is that what this person I think is talking about is, how do you embrace a growth mindset? And it's one of those terms that I hate because I feel like it's thrown around so often by like either bro marketers or like really woo-woo coaching types without there being like a really tangible meaning about what a growth mindset is. So I think in really simple terms, a growth mindset is embracing new challenges and embracing new opportunities, right, that are aligned with what you're doing and where you're going, and being prepared to fail in trying things out. And I think that's what it means. So when I see this question, my thought is like, a really natural opportunity for stepping into, the growth mindset and the actual like real world application of that is that if you're, for example, a service provider and you're working with a client in your usual setup of a project, and then they say at some point, or you say at some point, hey, there's this piece here that could actually add so much to this, and you don't necessarily have a lot of experience in it, but you feel like you have a good enough relationship with the client and a good enough understanding of the core deliverables to have like a very decent crack at it. I feel like that's a great way to safely expand your zone. And you may find out that actually I was quite shit at that thing, or I was good, but I didn't enjoy it, or that didn't add much value for me or for the client. So I feel like it's just being really open to the process of learning by doing. What are your thoughts on that train of thought?
Oh, I agree with you so much. And I think, what it made me think of is having your core skill and having resources, right? Like having reliable resources. So, say, for example, today, of someone I work with, and I was telling her that I was rewriting some of my website, and she said, "Oh, can I help you with that? I've been really dying to get, I'm using Showit right now. I've been dying, she's a web designer. I'm dying to get behind the scenes at Showit, like see what's going on there and what can happen." We went back and forth a little bit, and I was like, "Do you feel like you need to look at what I want to do and get like back there, behind the scenes and look at it first? Because I don't want you to commit and then, feel like you're in over your head or, whatever it was." And she was like, "No, no, no. I feel like I can tackle it as long as you're okay with me, learning as I go. I don't think it's going to be hard for me." And yes, of course, I'm open to that. And so I think if you have, I mean, that's not exactly where I started, because I was going to say, if you have the resources and someone asks you to do something, like it's okay to say, "You know what?" And I think this is what you were saying. "No, I don't know, but I know how to find out. And if you're willing to let me do that, or you're open to me doing that, I think I can do a great job for you." Because once you're good at something, you don't need to necessarily have done the thing before to do it successfully. I'm trying to think of a good analogy. I was thinking about like cooking or something where you work with tools, and you've got the skill to build something maybe, and you haven't built this before, but like how to use all the tools, and what a this is, and where to get information if you are stuck as you're planning it, whatever it is. So I think there's I was going to say like maybe a misconception, and maybe that's too strong a word, but I'm going to use it anyway. You have to have notched a certain number of hours on your belt in order to say, "I can do this." And you don't. You just have to be honest about and transparent about what you do and don't know, and make sure that the other person is on board with it. Like, so you don't have to lie or pretend, because chances are you're probably going to be really competent at it and really able. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. Because I think so much of like what we do in our business is just like a building of or an extension of our skills. So as you say, you can't actually get up, 100 hours of experience before you can offer the thing, because there's some point at which you need to go from theory to practice, or even from looking at something, a client's problem or a client's desire, and thinking, actually, I do think I could help you there. Like, I haven't done it before, full disclosure, but, I'm so eager to help you work this out. And I think that there is such a value in working with someone who is in that beginning phase of trying something, because I think you're inherently more invested in getting it right. Like, you're not at that point of having done something so many times that perhaps you're feeling a bit bored with it, or feeling a bit like removed from like rolling around in the dirt of it. And I think that often gets forgotten about. I think as well, like while we're talking about misconceptions, the one that's coming to me for this question too, I think like somewhere in the 20 teens, and I don't know if this is still out there because I don't think follow these same people at all anymore, but there was a real push in the online space for service providers to build like an ironclad framework or process and simply offer that same thing again and again and again and again and again. And I think while there is certainly value in that to a point, my bugbear with that approach has always been that I think the one thing that is geared towards is financial optimization, right? if you take the same cookie cutter and you apply it again and again and again and again and again, like I think the ability to scale that service or to hire people in to deliver parts of it for you is there, right? Which is not a bad thing in and of itself. But I think what that approach is not optimized for is the entrepreneurial urge that I would imagine most people listening to this have, to like continually find the edges of what works, to continually try new things, to experiment, right? To have that sort of flexibility. And I suspect this is possibly what's sitting in this question as well. But I would love to hear your take on that, Amy, because I've never actually said that out loud before. But yeah, like, how do you feel about that whole like do this thing and then make it repeatable and like always stay within your, this purview of this one set approach?
Yeah, I don't love it. I mean, I think a few things happen. I think people get bored for one thing. And I understand it as like a beginning strategy to like do something and repeat it perhaps so that you get good at it or build your confidence. But I think especially now in the era of AI, when so much of the repeatable stuff can be done by a machine, I think the real value is in expertise and in thinking and in flexibility and in having different approaches to problems based on, I mean, partly based on experience, but also based like sort of on intellectual surmise, right? Like what you know from moving in the world, what you know from doing other similar projects, what you know from your own experience working with clients or even as a consumer. That's more interesting as a practitioner, but B, I think the real, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say, I think the real money and the real sustainability in interest in what you do in running the business and your craft comes from pushing those edges and finding and learning new things and trying new things and bringing. I think it's really valued in the marketplace, and I think people are afraid to move out of those frameworks and out of those confines because for a whole bunch of reasons, including, lack of confidence or, working in a bubble and not knowing, right? Really not knowing what's valued or, what clients are value or so I think, yeah, I think 100%. I don't think that the framework model, I've never loved it personally because it's a little too cookie cutter and I get bored too quickly for that. I mean, I like to repeat things and I think that there's merit in that, but I like to repeat them, let me repeat it in a different way, or let me use what I learned here to do it better over here, or a little different, or adapt it to you, or whatever the case may be. And I think that's where the growth in this is. I mean, the personal growth, like where you really feel like you're growing as a person and you stay stimulated and you stay interested is being able to keep sort of pushing out and trying things. And I think it builds your confidence too, in a way that doing the same thing doesn't. I think that makes you maybe like sort of narrow down and feel smaller, where the other is more expansive. And I think, and also I'm going to flip it back to you because I feel like I'm going on a long time here, but I think that's one of the real values in doing this, or one of the really valuable things in running a business is you develop a lot as a person and as who you are and what you're able to do. And I think we undervalue that in some ways, or we don't talk about it enough. But I don't know, for me, that's like the juicy middle. That's the fun. That's the interesting piece. What do you say?
Yeah, I feel like we're just totally on the same page. We're like different versions of the same person in a lot of ways, and I think this is one of them. Um, Two, like you brought a really interesting point in there that I hadn't considered before around, the fact that AI is now a competitor for a lot of service providers, right? And I think we're at this interesting point on the timeline. Like AI is definitely still developing and becoming more sophisticated, but I do think people have like got past the point where they're excited about the shiny new toy and they've started to see the ramifications of its limitations, right? Because everyone now has, a new base standard available to them, because I think what AI can generate is probably better than what some businesses were generating before, right? It's certainly worse than what a lot were doing as well. But I think it's made prospects, consumers more savvy, and we're looking for a richness and a complexity that it can't often provide. And I think that the other thing it's really highlighted, and the opportunity I think of now, what are we, December 2025, is that the best problem solving is always bespoke. right? And I think this is perhaps where what you're talking about really comes to the fore, in that, you know, the important thing isn't that you're always doing the exact same thing and you're staying 100% in your lane. It's that you have the confidence and the ability to step slightly outside of it and to stretch your edge a bit and to look at something through a lens that allows you to say, like, sure, this is maybe what I did for client X, but I think in your case, because you have these very unique variables and pieces of context, I would actually love to try Y. Like, are you up for that? And I hope that if you're listening to, you can hear the way that, you know, both Amy and I are talking about this. You know, these are the words I would use with a client. You know, I'm not pretending I have experience or know-how. It's like, hey, I'm excited and I'm seeing a potential, you know, way to fix the problem here. Like, can we go on this adventure together? And I do think that there is such a value in that, that I suspect people who are concerned with staying in their lane or sticking to their exact, you know, process for every single client, like, they're not yet aware of. I'm talking a lot now. Amy, please bring us back to center.
No, you're not off track at all, though. I think those are really important points, and I think it's important to give people permission to do that and to operate that way inside of their business, because I think there's certainly a lot of information out there telling you, you know, that you know, and like you said earlier, like build this thing and then monetize this thing and then, create more little U's that are monetizing the thing and then you get a piece of the thing. I like whatever it is. I mean, that's been a pretty standard thing. And I think it's easy to feel like you don't have the right to get out of your lane, or you don't have the right to have that conversation with a client, like you just said. And it's interesting. It's like, even as you were saying it, like, ooh, we did this over here. I'm kind of thinking with these variables, I'd really like to try this. And like, you're lighting up as you're saying it. You're obviously excited about it. You're committed to it. You're committed to finding the answer. And I think that's much more interesting for a client than, well, we're going to do A here and B here. And I think, one of the things about that, and I think it's important to remind people that, when a client comes to you, they know an outcome that they want, right? I need this to happen, or this is why I'm talking to you or wanting to take on a project. And sometimes they'll even say, like, come to you wanting certain deliverables to that outcome, right? And based on how knowledgeable or experienced they are, maybe something they've read, something somebody else is doing, you don't know yet when you're first talking to somebody. But the truth is, they're coming to you because you're the expert, right? If they were the expert, they'd be doing this. They're the expert in what they do. You're the expert in what they're talking to you about. And that's really, I think, really welcomed and really valued by a client, is to have someone get really excited about it and say, well, I want to take on this challenge. I want to solve this for you. And I want to look at different ways and through different lenses, like, of how we might achieve set end goal. Because that's your right, that's your assignment, whatever it is that they've come to you for. But people want that. I think the better clients want that. I think the people who pay more money want that. They're really looking for somebody who's excited. This is their baby. This is their business very often. I mean, even if they have a role inside that business, this is their job. This is their livelihood. This is something that's really important to them. And the truth is, and I'm going a little sideways here, but I think it's worth saying, is if you feel like you have somebody who you can trust, not only to create the thing, but to be reliable, to really care about what's happening, to really care about the outcome. And then you can feel like you can trust that person. And so this whole project is 100% off your plate. That has a value beyond measure. And and I'm willing to pay, and a lot of people are willing to pay much more for that than you are for the idea that somebody might do something and you don't really get that they're 100% bought in. It's like, and then it's not fully off your plate. You're still thinking about it all the time. And it's like the value isn't there. So these are some of the sort of the intangibles that wrap around this. And I'm looking at this. Am I still on the topic, flexible, new skills? I'm going to throw it back to you.
So I think you are still on track. And I think, to wrap this up and to add one more final thought, and then I will throw it back to you, Amy, because I'm sure my thought will spur on something else from you. I think like, if you can find what you're good at and what you enjoy, like, hooray, you're already like 10 steps ahead of a lot of other people in business. So that's great. And I think what we're saying here is, don't feel as though once you've found that you're not able to experiment, because there is value for you and your experience and your skills and the edges of what you can do, and also the way you can grow with a client. There's so much value in that for you and for the people you work with. And I would say we're also not saying, and I think we haven't explicitly said this yet, so for the record, we're not saying that, well, sorry, I'll only speak for myself. I'm not saying, I suspect Amy will agree with me, that whenever you try something new, you're locked into therefore offering that always, right? It's a process where you get to experiment and you get to see how good you are at it, whether you enjoy it, whether you feel like there's a really good balance there between the capacity and effort and energy required from you and the financial reward you're able to get for that thing as well. So, it's about experimenting and being open to actually interrogating at the end of that, process of experimentation and flexibility and skill growth, whether that was a thing you want to do again. And it might not be. And that's great, because I think knocking out possibilities is also a really good way to hone the direction in which you're moving. So Amy, any final thoughts?
No, I do agree with you. And I do have two thoughts. One is, I just want to say that, I don't know is always a valid answer, right? So like, I don't know, but like to add on to that, I don't know, but I'm willing to dig around and find out. I'd love to learn that. I'd love to do that. I'd love to take that on for you. I think most people feel really good about that as long as you have core competencies, right? It's not like, oh yes, I've never built a website, but I'd love to take that on for you. Do you have 12 months? I mean, right? Obviously, that's not what we're talking about here. But I think, like, I don't know, but I'm willing to, or I don't know, but we can find somebody who can do that piece, whatever it is. Like, that's not gonna. You don't have to like be a deer in the headlights. No, like nobody's gonna not hire you because of that thing. And so, like, give yourself permission to experiment a little bit. And I would say, to sort of wrap this up, the staying flexible and being open to learning new skills, that equation, and bring to that also like your belief in yourself and your own confidence that you can learn the thing, that you can try the thing, that you don't have to, stay in this one lane, but you also don't need to go out and get a PhD in said skill in order to do the thing. And I think I see that stopping a lot of people, right? It's like, well, this is like the thing about like flying out there in a business. Like there's nobody to say, yes, you have the degree. Yes, you are certified. Yes, you are ready. And so let us confer readiness on you, because like if you're doing this, if you have a business, if you've set up shop, you are ready enough. And sometimes that's what matters. It's not about being perfect. It's not about, knowing the thing cold. It's about having your core competencies, having confidence in yourself, believing in yourself enough, and then being honest, just being honest about what you don't know and what you don't know. So I think we've covered this in depth. I feel good about our answers.
Me too. Let's like high five. High five for that. Sorry, one final thought from me, then I will shut up. To just like add another side of the coin to that piece about, you don't need a PhD in this thing. Because I think that's something that's always said, but I think the piece that's often not spoken about is like, as someone, I have postgraduate qualifications in psychotherapy, and I was a therapist before I opened my own business as a copywriter and now as a mix of the two. But even with postgraduate qualifications, as a therapist, I think I was like maybe 3 weeks into working with real life clients, and I already was way out of my depth in terms of I was dealing with something I'd never learnt about at university, right? But I did trust myself that I had the skills to work it out as I went. So like, I don't know if that resonates, but it's like, even when you do have the qualifications in something, it doesn't mean that you are therefore 100% prepared, 100% ready for every real life situation that's going to come your way as you're operating from that skill base, because that's just not possible ever.
No, and you learn by practicing. I mean, you learn your core skills, and then you've got to go out and practice them, because no, you're not going to, I mean, somebody's going to walk into your office, I mean, as a therapist, for example, and well, it's not going to be the particular like situation that you studied, because they're this unique person with their own blueprint, but you are skilled enough and competent enough that you can do it. And then as you've been doing it over weeks and months and years, it becomes more embedded in you. But it doesn't mean that you weren't really great like day one.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
part of that is your willingness, and part of that is your, your competence and your, willingness to, to like get in the soup and swim around.
My third client as a therapist was someone who was really struggling with a rough breakup with their partner because they couldn't get space. Anyway, I discovered about halfway through the first session they were still living in a caravan together. And I was like, okay, this was not in the textbook. Like, just know what deliciously unique context people are going to throw at you. And it's the same in business, right? You have to work with what's in front of you and you have to problem solve with a really specific set of circumstances that you're given.
It's perfect. I mean, it's like the perfect little tying a bow on this, because that's it, right? That's what it is.
Okay, well, if our rambly response, but I think I feel really good about this episode, Amy. I feel like if this has piqued any other questions for you listening, please go ahead to businessbadass.co and ask your question there. As you can tell, we really love to answer all sorts of things on this podcast. So please don't be shy. No question is off limits, and we would love to tackle it on a future episode.
Yes, because we're not shy. Catch you next time.
If you've enjoyed listening to us share our insights on this episode and you want more, head to the links in the show notes to find where you can sign up to be on our newsletters. So Amy's newsletter delivers weekly insights on how to build and grow a sustainable business that fills your coffers and feeds your soul. And my newsletter is all about optimizing your communication skills and habits. So the link in the show notes will take you to my assessment that will help you pinpoint your communication style and give you some strategies to improve and optimize things this week.